Turn on your kitchen tap. Clear water appears in less than a second. You do not search for it. You do not carry it. You do not wonder whether an animal died upstream during the night. But for most of human history, every drink began with a decision. Your ancestors lived without filters, chlorine, pipes, plastic bottles, or laboratory tests. They survived in landscapes where a wrong choice could bring parasites, violent diarrhea, dehydration, and death. Yet they crossed deserts, endured dry seasons, raised children, and occupied nearly every major environment on Earth. So how did they do it? The first answer is simple. They usually did not live far from water. Archaeological sites appear again and again beside rivers, lakes, springs, wetlands, and seasonal channels. Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, excavated by Louis and Mary Leakey, preserved early human activity near ancient lake margins and water-fed habitats. Koobi Fora in Kenya, studied extensively by Richard Leakey and later research teams, also records repeated occupation around the changing shores of Lake Turkana. These places were not chosen by accident. Water shaped the map of human life. A reliable spring could determine where a group slept. A shrinking pool could determine when they moved. A dry riverbed could still preserve moisture below the sand. Your ancestors did not need a modern map because the landscape itself was their map, and older members of the group carried its details in memory. Which tree grew near hidden groundwater? Which valley held water longest after rain? Which animal trail led downhill toward a spring? That knowledge was not trivia. It was survival information. Modern hunter-gatherer studies show how precise this knowledge can become. Anthropologist Richard B. Lee began fieldwork with the Jew-Hansi of the Kalahari in the 1960s. He documented seasonal movement around permanent and temporary water sources, along with the use of water-rich foods during difficult periods. One of the most famous examples is the Sama melon, a wild relative of watermelon. Its flesh is mostly water, allowing people to obtain fluid even when surface water is scarce. That leads to the first shocking truth. Your ancestors did not always drink their water. Sometimes they ate it. Fresh meat contains water. Blood contains water. Tubers, fruits, leaves, and melons can contain large amounts of it. A ripe watermelon is about 91% water by weight. Many wild fruits are smaller and less sweet, but they can still provide meaningful hydration. In dry environments, a meal could reduce the amount of liquid a person needed to carry. This did not make water optional. Your body is roughly half to two-thirds water, depending on age, sex, and body composition. Even a modest loss can affect concentration, coordination, and endurance. Severe dehydration becomes dangerous quickly, especially under heat and physical exertion. But hydration is a total balance, not just the number of cups you drink. Your ancestors understood that balance through experience. They also watched animals. Birds flying repeatedly in one direction near dusk could indicate water. Fresh tracks converging through grass could reveal a pool. Insects gathering around damp soil might signal moisture close to the surface. Large mammals often know the locations of persistent water holes, and humans could follow their routes. But animals also created danger. A muddy pool visited by dozens of animals could contain feces, urine, parasites, and decaying tissue. A stagnant basin under intense heat was usually riskier than a flowing stream or spring. People could not see bacteria, but they could recognize warning signs. Foul smells, strange colors, dead animals, thick algae, or water that had stopped moving. They learned patterns, not perfectly, not safely every time. Disease still spread. This is important because ancient humans were not protected by some magical prehistoric immune system. They suffered intestinal infections. Children died. Adults weakened. Parasites moved through communities long before anyone understood microbes. Survival does not mean the absence of disaster. It means enough people made enough correct decisions, often enough, for the group to continue. Now imagine one of those decisions. You are standing in a dry East African landscape during a season when rain has not fallen for weeks. The grass is pale. The air is hot enough to make breathing feel heavy. A channel cuts through the ground, but no water is visible. An older woman in your group walks to the inside bend of the channel. She digs. The sand becomes darker. A shallow hole slowly fills with cloudy water. This method is still used in dry regions today. Sand can trap moisture beneath the surface, and digging a seep well allows water to collect. The first water may be muddy, so people can wait, scoop it out, or let sediment settle. Sand is not a perfect filter, but it can remove some visible debris and provide access to water that would otherwise remain hidden. How would you know where to dig? You would know because someone showed you. Water knowledge was social knowledge. It passed from parent to child, from elder to younger hunter, and from one generation to the next. A person who remembered a spring from 20 years earlier could save an entire group during drought. This may be one reason human survival depended so strongly on culture. Your teeth do not reveal a hidden spring. Your muscles do not tell you when a seasonal pool will disappear. Your brain does. And not just your individual brain. The shared memory of the group acts like a storage system distributed across many people. Anthropologist Frank Marlowe spent years studying the Hadza of Tanzania. His work showed how camp location, foraging range, and social life were tied to the distribution of food and water. Daily travel could cover many kilometers, but camps were not placed randomly. Access to drinking water remained one of the basic constraints around which movement was organized. Mobility was often the real filtration system. When water became unsafe, scarce, or crowded, people moved. This is the opposite of a modern city, where water is forced to travel toward you. In prehistory, you traveled toward water. Your camp followed the season. Your hunting route followed rivers. Your social network connected one water source to another. Then humans developed ways to carry water farther. This happened long before metal bottles or ceramic jars. The evidence is fragile because skins, gourds, bark, and woven containers decay. But some containers survive in pieces. At Deep Kloof Rock Shelter in South Africa, archaeologist Pierre-Jean Texier and colleagues studied engraved ostrich eggshell fragments dating to roughly 60,000 years ago. The repeated patterns on the shells suggest they were part of a shared symbolic tradition. Similar ostrich eggshells have been used historically as water flasks by sand communities. An ostrich egg can hold roughly 1 liter. A small hole is opened at the top. The contents are removed. The shell is cleaned, filled with water, and sealed with grass or another stopper. The result is light, portable, and surprisingly strong. That is the second shocking truth. Humans were carrying water in canteens tens of thousands of years before the first metal flask. Water storage changed the size of the world. A group could travel farther from a spring. Hunters could remain away longer. Water could be cached along a route, sometimes buried and marked for later use. Mothers could carry water for children. Injured or elderly people could receive water without walking to the source themselves. A container also allowed sediment to settle. If cloudy water sits undisturbed, heavier particles fall to the bottom. Pouring from the top does not remove microbes, but it can improve clarity and reduce grit. Cloth, grass, fiber, or sand could also strain out visible material. Then there was fire. At Gesher Beno Yaakov in present-day Israel, archaeologist Nama Goren Inbar and her team found evidence of repeated fire use from about 780,000 years ago. Burned seeds, wood, and flint appeared in distinct concentrations, suggesting controlled activity around hearths. Fire transformed food, warmth, protection, and social life. But did people boil water? Possibly. The problem is evidence. A fire leaves charcoal. A ceramic pot can survive for thousands of years. A hide bag, bark container, or heated water pit usually does not. Before pottery, people could theoretically heat stones in a fire and drop them into a container of water. Ethnographic records show that this technique works, but proving that a specific prehistoric group routinely used it is difficult. That leads to the third shocking truth. The control of fire did not automatically mean safe drinking water. Humans may have cooked food for hundreds of thousands of years before boiling water became regular or archaeologically visible. The earliest known pottery from East Asia is around 20,000 years old, though dates vary by site and interpretation. Once heat-resistant containers became common, boiling became easier, repeatable, and easier to detect. Before that, your ancestors relied heavily on source selection, movement, storage, settling, and experience. They may also have consumed water soon after collection, rather than leaving it exposed for long periods. A covered eggshell or skin bag reduced contact with dirt and animals. A spring emerging directly from rock was often safer than a shallow pool, though no natural source was guaranteed. Cold environments created a different problem. Snow looks clean, but eating large amounts of snow lowers body temperature and costs energy because your body must melt it. In freezing conditions, that can make survival harder. Melting snow near a fire is safer, but it still requires fuel. Ice from contaminated water can also carry contamination. Clear appearance never meant complete safety. Coastal environments were difficult in another way. Seawater contains far more salt than your kidneys can remove while conserving water. Drinking it forces your body to use additional water to excrete the salt, making dehydration worse. Ancient coastal groups needed freshwater springs, streams, rain pools, water-rich foods, or stored supplies even when the ocean surrounded them, so the presence of water was not enough. It had to be the right water. It had to be found at the right time, and it had to be shared. Picture a small group at the end of a hot day. One hunter returns with an ostrich eggshell flask. A child drinks first. An injured adult receives the next portion. The remaining water is divided carefully. Nobody measures milliliters, but everyone understands scarcity. That scene reveals something deeper. Water-shaped cooperation. A hidden spring was valuable information. A container of water was portable security. A person who shared water could strengthen social bonds. A person who knew multiple routes could become essential to the group. Survival depended not only on physical strength, but on memory, trust, generosity, and teaching. Modern humans often think technology began with stone tools, but a mental map is technology. A seasonal calendar is technology. A rule about which pool to avoid is technology. A story that tells children where water remains during drought is technology. These tools leave almost no archaeological trace, yet they may have saved more lives than any spear point. Your ancestors did not survive because every stream was clean. They survived because they learned that water behaved differently in different places. They read terrain, they watched animals, they moved with seasons, they ate water-rich foods, they dug below dry ground, they stored water in materials that rarely survived, they used fire when possible, and they passed every successful lesson forward. Many still died, many became sick, many journeys ended badly. But the knowledge accumulated. Generation after generation, the distance between danger and survival became a little wider. Turn on your kitchen tap again. Clear water still appears in less than a second. Only now, behind that second, you can see the ancient system it replaced. The remembered spring, the animal trail, the dug seep, the shared flask, the elder who knew where to walk when the river disappeared. That's the story. If your brain just flinched at any of that, good, it's still mostly wild under there. See you in the next one.